This is Mastering Your Wealth with David Gagnon, the podcast.
How do you think you're going to feel in retirement if your plan is not prepared and protected? David, that's where you come in. Talk to me.
I'll tell you, it's so important to have a plan with safeguards and airbags on your money, especially when you're getting close to retirement or in retirement, because you just don't have the time to sit and wait for your money to get back to where it needs to be for you to draw an income from that. We're talking about planning and the importance of it. Planning gives you clarity as to what your retirement will look like. It gives you control, gives you predictability, but it gives you the ability to assess how you really should position your money so you can create the value from those resources. And most people it's in the form of income, but also a way to protect it and grow it. A client that just became a client literally about 6 months ago. They retired, and we did the retirement forecast we talk about on the radio all the time. It's complimentary. We did his portfolio analysis, and he really wasn't comfortable getting into retirement without knowing how it might look and whether he should be doing things differently. And we determined that he had so much risk baked into his investment plan that it was truly not aligned with his income needs for retirement. So we restructured everything. We put a plan in place, and it's very predictable. We did some tax planning. Well, since he has a plan in place and he understands how it's baked in with some airbags and safeguards and buffers from these corrections in the market, he sees the value of what his plan is accomplishing for him. And I'll tell you, I know there's been a lot of people listening to the show for a long time, and they've been on the fence about calling us because the problem is, a lot of people don't make decisions on their money until the financial, emotional pain gets to a certain threshold. Well, now is the time we start getting a lot of calls when the markets are getting really choppy, and there's a lot of signs that there could be a correction coming. Now, you can't wait till you already get beat up and the bloodbath has already occurred, because I can't work magic, when we could have taken people from a value in their portfolio and put in the financial and investment safeguards and buffers on their money so that they don't become victims to what's going to occur, because it's coming, and who knows how long this duration is going to last. But there's so many things globally that could drive the market one way or the other. And so you can take control with a good plan, investment design, by using non-traditional techniques of investment management and product tools. And these are the things that are in the blind spot for so many people, because they're in a traditional investment plan of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And there's so much more out there to really complement your investment strategy that will give you the safeguards to protect you on these big drops in the market and still capture very good, consistent returns. And so it's what you don't know that hurts you more than what you do know. And that's why I think it's important for people to start really paying attention to their investment strategy, because things aren't going to get any better anytime soon. Mm-hmm. So it's not something that you want to sit back and wait on, especially if you're getting closer to wanting to retire or you're in retirement, because a lot of people find that when these events occur and they're in retirement and they need to draw an income from this money that's losing value, that is a very quick way to derail your retirement and see that the life of that retirement fund greatly reduce itself. Because when the market loses money, you need a higher return to get back to where you were just to break even. And when you're taking money from that loss on top of it, it's even worse. When you lose 50% in the market, you need 100% of a return in the market just to get back to where you were. Mm-hmm. And you can't expect these markets to bounce back like that anymore. And we could see another big correction.
Back to what I was saying here about being proactive. A lot of folks say, just hold on a little bit. It'll bounce back. Things will go fine. Well, if you ask me, that's not the swing I want to be swinging on, right? I don't want the rope to break out from under me. I want to make sure I have a plan in place. And Steve Sosnick, he is a contributor to CNBC. He says now is the time to get defensive. And I want to get your thoughts on this in just a second, David.
Right now, you want something that's a bit recession proof, because the bond market, with the moves that we're seeing, they're screaming at us right now to tell us that they think we're looking at a recession. So this sort of bodes for a bit more of a defensive posture until we can really see if this is a temporary storm or bumpy landing, so to speak, or if it is indeed a harder landing.
Okay, so break this down for me. Is this the time to get defensive here? Is this the time to sit back and relax? So what are your thoughts? How are you guiding folks?
No, I think you don't have to get defensive. Just be proactive in your planning. There are ways to make money in a volatile market and protect it at the same time. And it comes down to using the right management techniques. We use a proactive institutional money management platform where we can do things differently than the typical investment firm. I mean, there's the wealthy people use these types of firms that are institutional tactical money management. And we use different product types as well. And comprising and compiling an overall investment plan structure that has a lot of different tools and techniques so that we can achieve consistency in returns. That's key. Minimize the volatility. And when you bring those two together, that's how you create real wealth with a lot less anxiety. You just got to stop losing value in your retirement years. And it's something that can be accomplished with a good strategic income distribution plan and an investment strategy that's aligned with it. So if you really want to put a real plan together and have control over the future outcome of your retirement with a higher probability of success.
So let's say you've set your retirement date. You're excited, you've got everything in place, but is it realistic? Well, there's a recent survey that says 40% of us end up retiring before that planned date. Here's Morningstar's Christine Benz and her recommendations of coming up with a plan B.
People tend to overestimate how long they'll be able to work. In general, we see a little bit of a disconnect where you've got people retiring in the 60 to 65 year range who maybe had planned to stick it out even past age 70. So you should build in a contingency plan. Maybe your best guess is that you'll retire at age 68 or 70 or whenever it may be, but build in some kind of buffer. What would you do if you needed to or wanted to retire a bit earlier?
Okay, interesting there. So having that plan B back up there, that buffer plan. So when you create a retirement plan, David, do you build that what-if scenario as well?
We build out a number of what-if scenarios because the analysis is driven by a lot of assumptions. We have so many different variables that affect the success or lack thereof of what could happen. And inflation is one of those. So if we're using an inflation factor or a rate on your money that you're going to need to increase each year to maintain your lifestyle spending goal, say it's 3% and the numbers look good, and we take into account the taxes you're going to pay on the money and what sources it's coming from and how it's going to get taxed. But then we always want to stress test it because inflation doesn't stay at 3%. If you look at today, inflation, depending on how people are living and spending their current money and how they spend and shop, their inflation factor might be double that. It could be 6%. Well, if we were to do that 6% out for the rest of somebody's life expectancy in retirement, it probably won't work out too well. But we have to bring expectations to a realistic level for people when they're putting together the decision on when they retire and how much they're going to be able to live on and what they can do in retirement, because everything comes with a price tag. When you're in retirement, you're going to do things differently. There's going to be a cost to it. You might travel, you might do stuff with the grandkids, you might buy a second home. There's so many different things that we have to do what-if scenarios on and put a budget in place to see if it's going to work. And it's important to do that before you actually retire. I have a couple that came in last week, and they were listening to us on the radio for a long time. And they finally called us about 8 months ago and hadn't really decided to retire because they weren't sure if they could make it all work. And we did our forecast analysis, and they were coming up short with their spending goals. And so what we had to do is do what-if scenarios and assume, well, what if you work a year or two longer and see if it could work that way. And it actually made a big improvement by deferring retirement just 2 years. And it made the spending objectives that they wanted to achieve attainable. We restructured how they were going to put their money in their income distribution plan and what kind of returns they were going to get. And we also looked at the fact that they're going to downsize and take their home and sell it and have some cash left over that would even give them more of a cushion to enjoy more of their retirement and be able to travel and do things that they wanted to do, but they just couldn't really get to that level of spending because they just didn't have enough liquid resources to generate the income. But they were all good with it. They wanted to actually get out from under the bigger home and have something that was going to cost them less and less to work and maintain. And so it was a good exercise for them to go through. Now they're confident that they can retire and they have a plan now. And that's the thing. You want to make decisions off of a plan. We refer to it as the financial GPS. So, you know where you are today financially, but if you're going to retire at age 65 and you think you're going to live to 95, well, that's a huge challenge on managing your money the right way to make it last for 30 years and have it adjusted for inflation and taxes. And there's all other things that can work against you. Out-of-pocket health care is a big issue today. And I have families that are going through that, living it. And they're spending a lot of money monthly to help care for one of the spouses, which we try to stress test that as well, because some people who have seen this happen to others and how they derailed their retirement with these big out-of-pocket healthcare costs, they wanted to see if they can manage this on their own and have a good plan so that if that day ever were to occur, they financially could absorb it and have the surviving spouse or the healthy spouse still in a position of being able to do the things they wanted to do in retirement. So we look at a lot of this stuff, but you really have to model this out, look at the details in your number, what your goals are, what your spending desires are, and let's go through the variables, because it's not only inflation that could derail your retirement and you don't have enough money to keep pace with it. It's maybe paying more than your fair share of taxes and you don't have a tax strategy to lower your taxes, or healthcare out of pocket. Other things come up where people have family members or children that need help that wasn't planned for, and there's all kinds of reasons that come up, whether it's divorce or other issues. And we get calls all the time from clients, and they want to know that they're going to be okay if they help out a child that needs a down payment for a car.
Yeah, there's always something.
Yeah, there's always something. So we can stress test a lot of things, but in reality, you may not get it all correct. And we just want to make sure that when people retire, financially, things are looking good, and we have them positioned in the right way so that they know where they should have their money invested and where their cash flow is coming from and what spending goals that they can achieve, and keep it at a level that they understand what their limits are, because a lot of people go into retirement blindly. And I see so many people that just made some costly mistakes, and in the first 5 to 10 years, they realize, oh boy, this is not going to work out, and then it's kind of too late to fix the problem. So you don't want to be in that position if at all possible.
Well, and you don't want to be in that position, right? You want to make sure all your ducks are in a row, and I think that's another emphasis of why it's important to meet with somebody like you, David, with, again, nearly 40 years of experience here in the business, because any one of us, anyone listening, myself included, we can look at our income and go, okay, let's do some math. What are my monthly expenses? What do I think this trip's going to cost? That's going to cost, and kind of do some projecting, as we'd like to say, and go, oh, I think I'm pretty good. But there's a difference between what we know and what you know, right? That's why you're the professional, because 9 times out of 10, folks come in and they go, I'm pretty sure I've got everything buttoned up, but just in case, go ahead and give me a once-over. And your once-over ends up finding gaps, ends up finding maybe errors or mistakes that they've made, and things that could really cost them 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And at that point, it could be too late to make up that money, right? You don't want to be 80 being told, hey, you might want to go to apply at Walmart. That's not what any of us want. So, David, for those that are, concerned about their financial future, their income, maybe concerned about if their retirement date is even a feasible, dream, what's the first step to meeting with you?
Well, we'll have a phone call first. It's referred to as an introductory phone call. And I just like to talk to folks to see what their concerns are, what they've done in the past, and what they like that they're doing and what they don't like and what their concerns are moving forward. And then we'll have our paraplanner, Frank, send an email out to provide instructions on how to log into our planning portal. And then you can fill in some of your financial information there and link your your most recent documents that I review. And it'll be your investment accounts, retirement accounts, your debts, your tax return. I look at everything, and because everything affects your money. And we'll put together that initial forecast with what your plans were or what your goals were in your mind today, as far as what age you want to retire, what you think you're going to need to spend. And what probably the most difficult exercise in that process is getting people to really understand where they're spending their money, having that budget put together. And so Frank will help people walk through and get through that process. But that's probably one of the most important things that people need to know. What are you spending your money on? And what do you need to buffer it with things that you aren't spending your money on yet, but you will in retirement? And so we have to kind of go through that exercise so that we make sure we can create enough income so that your lifestyle in retirement is enjoyable and it's not guesswork. It's comfortable, and you have a plan forward, because too many people get into retirement with a plan of hope, and that's not how you really want to try to get through your retirement years, because that plan of hope most of the time doesn't work out very effectively, and a lot of people just find that retirement isn't what they had hoped because they just made some costly financial mistakes. You can avoid that by working with somebody that can find these things that might hurt you, that are in your blind spot, because we see things that people don't see, good and bad, and we can help them with just all the years of experience and all the tools we have at our disposal and the planning guidance. And it's like when you go to a doctor, right? You're not feeling quite right. You think something's wrong, but the doctor's going to ask you a lot of questions, come up with a diagnosis, do some tests, get some blood work, do some labs. And there's things in those labs and the blood work that you would never see because you don't have the tools and the techniques to really bring that to the surface so that you can address something that might not be critically harmful to you, but could turn into something really harmful later. And so then the doctor's in a position to prescribe a remedy. Well, we do the same things with your money and finance. We want to diagnose if there is a problem, and then now we're in a position to put together a plan that's strategically designed, that's personalized to improve the results and give you better control over the outcome with less risk.
For more details or to sit down with David for your complimentary financial GPS, visit masteringyourwealthradio.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Wealth Advisors, LLC, BWA, a registered investment advisor and an affiliate of Brookstone Capital Management, LLC. BWA and First Financial Planners are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BWA, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents.
Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
Any comments regarding safe and secure products and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company and are not offered by Brookstone.
David Gagnon and First Financial Planners are not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.
Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interests of our clients and to make full disclosure of any conflicts of interest. Please refer to our firm brochure of the ADV 2A Item 4 for additional information.